With the first month of summer already gone, here we sit in July, and I want to talk you through everything that happened in June. And the big news today, as we sit here on July 11th, was the CPI, the core inflation report. So I'm going to cover all of that, what all that means going forward, because I have a big prediction to make today. Let's get to it. All right, so mortgage rates, they stayed flat. They did fluctuate throughout the month of June, but they started at 7% and they ended at or right around 7% again. Inventory, it's the same thing, which is a little bit crazy. So things are really stable to start off our summer season. And what I'm seeing, I'll get into in a little bit as far as boots on the ground, feedback from showings, things like that. Days on market continues to be very stable and prices are continuing to go up. So condos are consistently still increasing. Single family homes are back in the positive, just like they have been for the last roughly month or so, if you've been following. But beyond that, it's still a very stable, but delicately stable market. Now, this chart, right, comparing where we were in June to the previous month of May, but also comparing to last June of 2023. So one at a time, compared to May, rates did come down a little bit. Inventory, again, is basically flat. And the list to sale price, shockingly enough, is identical as well. And that is a bit of a surprise. That rarely happens. But versus last year, things are, again, pretty much the same outside of inventory. So we're up about 18% compared to where we were at the beginning of last July. And you would think that that would start to change things a little bit from a buyer's standpoint. Do you have more leverage? And again, we're going to talk about that a little bit more at the end because all of this stuff leading up to what I'm going to say there matters. Paying attention to all of this context informs what we're going to be talking about at the end of this video. So make sure you don't miss it because all this will have a payoff at the end. The new listing amount was higher than I expected it to be. We had a strong second half of June, but still, all things considered, minuscule compared to where we used to be, right? Pre-COVID, and I know that's getting further and further away, but we've been fairly consistent this year with seeing roughly 80 to 90 listings per month outside of the first 2 months of the year. Now, pending sales, again, this was a strong month. This is actually our strongest month of the year, which more than one or two than other months, but still having the strongest month of the year in June, looking backwards, hasn't happened. That's not normal. So I think what we have seen, to simplify it, a lot of people were waiting, right, for rates to do something, and they did come down a little bit. But the weather has been so nice that it's been hard to not want to be here for the rest of the summer. And we had a great month. And I do expect that that should continue in the near future. Maybe not in July or August, but in the fall, I think we're going to see an uptick here in activity. Now, closed sales, this was a pretty weak month. But again, we've been pretty consistent month after month so far this year, which is very stable. Now, single family statistics, right? We had the big ramp up where I said we're going to start to see some incentives in the single family world, and we did. Those homes that were offering incentives, most of them have since gone under contract. Not all closed yet, but at least are no longer on the market. So that is one of the reasons why we're now seeing that months of inventory dip back downward. We had a huge month as far as single families goes. We had 19 go under contract, and it's rare. We usually have a few double-digit months like that per year. It's just usually not in June, but it happened. And a lot of those good homes are now gone, including some of the new construction ones that, again, I felt were likely to see some declines should they have stayed on the market, and they were sold via incentives. So these sale prices, again, are trending slightly back upwards. I think this is a bit of a blip. I would anticipate that it stays right about maybe a hair down when we see where July falls. But again, we're going to be floating around that 1.6 to 1.7 range now. Again, about a year and a half ago, I was very consistent saying I expected us to stay in the 1.5 to $1.6 million range. But now that we've come out of that lull that we did have, I expect things to start picking back up again, but not drastically so, just a little bit at a time because we are heading into a more normalized market. Days on market, slight trend downward compared to last month, but still overall very stable. Now, condos, again, very consistent here for the better part of the last 2 years in terms of months of inventory being between 4 and 5. It's a very healthy market there. The prices follow suit, right? Staying very consistent and very stable, and days on market as well. Now, prediction part, and this is the big part of the video. If you made it this far, you're going to be glad you did. So the inflation report came in slightly under expectations again for the second month in a row. And that hasn't happened since 2020, where we had inflation at or under the expected value. Now, to bring you back to economics class real quick. The federal mandate, one of them, is to keep inflation as close to 2% per year as possible. We're still not there. Inflation came in at 3% for the month of June compared to last June. This is the core inflation, by the way. There are many different measures, many different metrics, but that's the one that the Fed seems to care most about. So 2 months in a row of meeting or exceeding, I'll say, expectations in terms of improving on inflation. Um, there's a lot of speculation out there, and there already was a 65% chance, I believe, of the Federal Reserve cutting rates in September. I've been very vocal that I didn't think that was going to happen throughout the bulk of the year because those inflation reports were continuing to be negative. They were not friendly. Inflation was continuing to increase. It was, I'll say, beating expectations the wrong way. Inflation was coming in higher. 2 months in a row, the pressure is going to be there with unemployment starting to rise. There are various different metrics and charts that I've been gobbling up all of the past week or so that have been pointed to a weaker economy coming. And I think we all feel that, right? And metrics and data aside, I think a lot of people have felt the pain of what has been happening over the past few years, whether it's your grocery store, going out to eat, whatever it may be. None of that changes, right? But the Federal Reserve, in addition to that 2% mandate, is to make sure that unemployment as a lever that they have stays within an acceptable range, right? And it's the sad truth that if unemployment is too low, more people have money to buy things. And that causes prices to increase because the demand is higher than the supply of goods, depending on which bucket you're looking at. So all that said, I do anticipate now, and the betting markets seem to agree, it's gone up to over an 80% chance of a rate cut coming in September. There's still plenty of time where that could change, right? There's still going to be more inflation reports between now and then. If the coming ones are worse than expectations, right? Inflation is higher than expected, then I don't see that being the case, right? I've been very clear that I thought at worst we would see maybe one, or at best I should say we would see one rate cut maybe in December. I still think that's a possibility, but things are looking up for now. And a couple of my mortgage contacts have already confirmed that based off of the news that came out today, rates have already dropped on their end, somewhere around an eighth to a quarter of a percent, which, while not massive, that's going to keep us under 7% for most people, for most loans. And I would anticipate that that stays the case as long as inflation stays on this trajectory that it seems to be on, the economy stays on the trajectory that it seems to be on. I do expect things to be more friendly for buyers in the coming months than they have been. Now, I'm going to go off script here. You can read the words if you want. But the biggest question that I get as a result of talking about this stuff, right? It's going to be more friendly for buyers. The biggest problem here is lack of quality inventory, right? Inventory is up, like I said earlier, 18% compared to where we were last year. But the amount of quality inventory that I can go out there and feel good about recommending to a client, to a buyer, based on the price and condition and location is minuscule. There's really not much out there. There's a property that I'm going to be hopefully showing tomorrow that apparently had 30 agents reach out on it and trying to book a showing in a 2-hour window between tenants because I think it is priced appropriately. It's slightly under the comps, about 10, 15,000 maybe. So that goes to show that the demand for a quality property at a reasonable price is absolutely still out there. So if rates coming down, if mortgage rates coming down a little bit is going to boost people's buying power, I think we could see some of these stale properties start to sell as long as the sellers are willing to give a little bit. And I've seen some more price reductions get things down to a more reasonable level lately, just in the past 30 to 45 days. So I do expect activity to happen over the next 45 days or so in July and August. However, the normal message that I've been sharing, right, is if you don't see anything you love, you can wait till the fall. That is absolutely still a viable strategy. However, if there is something that you see that catches your eye and is fairly unique, and at this point, it seems that most things that are desirable are fairly unique because people simply aren't selling the good stuff for the most part. Or if they are, again, they just want too much because they'd rather keep it. It's the Ocean City special. So if you see something, you have to move on it. And if you don't, then you're rolling the dice, right? Will there be some deals in the fall? I'm sure there will be. There always are. But where will they be on the island? How many bedrooms? What price point is it going to be in? I don't know. So be vigilant over the coming couple months. I'm happy to help you. If you don't already have an agent that you're working with, I'm happy to keep an eye out and dig and get to work for you because speed is going to matter again very, very soon. I think we're going to see a lull here before people really wake up for about the next 2 to 3 weeks. And then I think people are going to start coming around again. So we have our normal summer sleepy season, which we're in right now. I think people are going to wake up sooner than later once this news starts to hit headlines and things start to get out there. So that is it for this week. And if you found this helpful, do me a favor, hit the like button below. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications because I put these videos out usually every week. I'm leaning more towards every other week at this point, with business continuing to keep me very busy. And quite frankly, with this news section, right, with all of this, the statistics and data being seemingly everybody's favorite, doesn't make sense to do that every week. So every other week is most likely going to be the cadence going forward. So that is it. Thank you for hanging out as always, and I will see you next time.